Have you ever done buttonholes on your machine? If you've done them, have you ever struggled to make sure they were perfectly placed every single time? Well, with the Baby Lock Radiance, there is a super easy way to do that built into the machine, so you don't have to get a different tool, a ruler out, or any of that. So let's talk about that today. With buttonholes on the Baby Lock Radiance, you'll notice that the foot here is huge. The reason why is because it can do all sorts of different sizes of buttons. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second, because we're gonna hop on the screen, and that way we can talk about how we can space things perfectly. So, right here, I'm already set up in my buttonhole section, and I always love the fact it tells me which foot to put on the machine. A+, perfect, I'm good. And then I can turn on the projector. So this machine does come with the built-in projector, and it's huge. And what is so nice about it is I can make any changes that I need that are on the bottom of the screen here, or right here on the projector. But what really makes it sing about buttonholes is going to be this screen right here, which is the buttonhole guideline. Now with this, we've got a couple of different things that we can choose from here. So I can choose that my buttonholes are going to be lined up like this, like they often are on like a collared shirt, or lined up more like this, which I often see more on like pillow covers. So I'm going to line it vertically versus horizontally for now. And then right here I can go into spacing, where I can tell it how far apart or how close I want those buttons to end up being. So I'm going to bring them a little bit closer so you can see it a little more. There we go. And then the cloth edge guide. So usually when you install buttonholes, you want them to be somewhat close to the edge of the fabric. This gives you that guideline so you know exactly where you're going to land next to the fabric, so you don't have a whole line of buttonholes and one ended up, over on the East Coast. So, along with that, there's also a distance from the edge, so that's what that means. And from here, let's go ahead and look over on the projector side. So I've got this cute little fabric that we're going to use, and I always say make sure if you don't have more than one layer of fabric under your buttonhole that you use stabilizer. It's just a scrap from a random hooping that I did. And I'm going to bring it over here. And right here, you can already see some of those things. So this green line up in front is telling me where the edge of my fabric needs to be. This buttonhole foot also has a compensation plate, which is also fabulous when you're only doing like a single layer of fabric. So I'm going to put the foot down so I can see what I'm doing a little bit better. There we go. And then right here where that projection is, that's going to be where that first buttonhole is going to lie. Whoop. There we go. Now I'm lined up. So that's going to be where that first buttonhole is going to lie. Now there is a projection line all the way back here. If I were doing a line of buttons and this wasn't my first one, this is where my first one would be. So I'm going to go ahead and line it up about there, because that's probably where I'd want it to be. Line up with my fabric guide. And I'm going to put my presser foot down. Now, here is the trick. I also need to make sure I tell it what button I want to use. So right now I think it's set up for a small button like this. And what it'll actually do is it is going to read the size of my button to make that buttonhole. So when I put my foot down, the icon doesn't turn green right away. When I go to press green, now it is read exactly how big my button is to make that buttonhole perfect every single time. Some machines you have to kind of measure the button and get it in millimeters so you can get it the right width. This will get it perfect every single time. So right now I've lined it up for a black button. She's just humming along, super quiet, happy as can be. And here we go. Just gonna finish off, and I can just press my scissor button, lift my foot up, and there's our first buttonhole. Not shabby, right? So now I'm going to go to our next button. So I'm going to use those guideline markers. So I see that's where my buttonhole was, which, by the way, let's line it up next to each other so you guys can see. It's the actual size. Whoop. How cool is that? Okay, anyways, going up, I'm going to make sure that that button lines up with that marker back there. I'm going to actually trick it for a second, though, because I'm going to switch what button I've got. So I'm going to switch to one that's a little bit bigger, just to show you guys how that reads very well. Put my foot down, let it think for a second.
Attach buttonhole foot A+.
So you can hear the machine talks to me when she notices that there's a different button on there. She's reminding me, make sure you put that A+ button on, and I'm sure you saw in the projector that buttonhole got a little longer. So now I'm going to do it for this button. What I like about this whole process is it really takes away a lot of the guesswork of doing a buttonhole. I have done so many cosplay shirts and cosplay jackets with buttonholes that I just kind of hoped for the best on. The fact that this feature is built in just blows my mind, because I had many buttonholes that were just a little bit off, and I would call it good enough and hope nobody noticed except for me. So now I know that that's not going to be a problem. I'm going to cut that, lift that up, and look how great those turned out. Now I didn't line it up perfectly. That's on me, not on it. I forgot to line it up with the fabric edge. But let's try that for the last round. I'm going to go ahead and open it up and put a very big button in there. Then I'm going to make sure it all goes in. Boom, boom. Once again, perfect sized. Line it up with the fabric guide this time. And then make sure that black buttonhole lands where it was supposed to. There it goes. All right. And once again, before I go, she's going to say, and look at how big that buttonhole just turned out. So now I can kind of see it's actually going to run into my next one. So I'm going to ignore the markers for a second. Put that down. Make sure it's lined up on those green markers. Here we go. And away we go. Oh, it wanted me to double check because I hit everything. All right, here we go. One thing if you're doing buttonholes at home to remember, which is one that always gets me, don't forget that you need to feed the machine a little bit more fabric than we're used to doing, because it's going to sew the buttonhole backwards. So instead of sewing forward like we're used to, it goes a little bit backwards. So you always want to line up the fabric appropriately for that. But once she's done doing this, we'll get to see how beautiful and perfect all three of these buttonholes were for the 3 different size buttons that we used. I hope that this takes away some of the scariness of buttonholes for you, because seriously, once you learn how to use these feet properly, they're so easy. So, all right, here we go. We're going to go ahead and cut that thread, lift up the foot, and there we go. And look, those 2 are in line again. So just to give you guys an example, there's 1, there's 2, and there is 3. So I didn't have to adjust anything on the machine. The machine did all of that for me. And now I know that my buttonholes are going to be perfect every single time. If you want to see this in action, you've got to stop by one of the stores and check out the new Baby Lock Radiance. All of them have it on their floor, and I know every single one of us is so excited to show you more about this machine. Thanks for joining me today. Make sure you check out the playlist on the Baby Lock Radiance, because we'll be adding more videos to it as well, and we'll see you there. Hey guys, here at Rocky Mountain Sewing and Vacuum, we always like to make sewing fun start here. And so we appreciate you watching this video. If you want to see more like it, check out this playlist. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you know what is happening here. So we'll see you guys next time.